Welcome to the Brave Wisdom Podcast. My name is Brett Owen. Today we're going to look at a theme that is really meaningful to me, and it's one that we're going to explore as we interview people and as we get deeper into the Brave Wisdom Podcast and the episodes to come. And that theme is radical focus. You see, the best definition I have so far, and I'm working on this, and it'll be something that may evolve as we even interview people and learn from others, and I even grow in this myself. But radical focus is the relentless pursuit of purpose. It's when you align your heart, mind, and your actions with your deepest values. See, in my life, in my wife's life, we've done a lot of work in the coaching and counseling space to examine and know our values, our personal values. You know, a lot of times that's done in the corporate sense, or your organization has values, but you too, as an individual, have them. And if you don't know them, you won't be able to live out them, and your life really won't have focus. So that's why values are so important. And I think values also help to even define and start to uncover, because that's what this process is. It's uncovering your true identity and who you really are as a unique child of God. You see, I think when we align our hearts, our mind, and our actions with our deepest values and our true identity, then we bring order to the chaos of life. I know you're listening today and you know exactly what I'm talking about. At this moment in 2025, I don't know about you, but I'm sensing there's just chaos around us. There's this tension of chaos that's even building. You know, we're in January, a new year, and you're hearing things and rumors of war, rumors of crazy stuff happening in our world. And yet somehow we've got to bring order and focus to our lives. Because I know that those of you that are listening, you want to live a life of meaning and impact. You see, I know that's the case for me, and that's why this show is part of that for me. I needed an outlet to be able to share all the things that I feel are being deposited in me and growing in me, and I want to share it with others. But even that, I want to have people that come on the program. I have some great interviews lined up in the coming weeks, and I know that those conversations are going to be as meaningful to you as they will be to me. So today I just want to unpack this theme because I think it's a theme that it resonates with the new year. And it's a theme that I really want to even ask my guests in the coming weeks of ways that they align their heart, mind, and actions with their values so that they can have focus in their life. And so I'll start with this. I haven't always lived a radically focused life. By all means, I think I know what it's like to live without clear aim or to be very anxious. And that's the truth. And there was a time when I started to embrace this, but it didn't come until I slowed down. So for those of you listening, perhaps you want to be radically focused, but you're in too much of a hurry. When we live a hurried life or a fast-paced life, we don't even consider ourselves or the values that we're being driven by. And so the first step that I had to take was to slow down. And I remember this moment so clearly. My wife and I discussed it recently when we were at a marriage retreat together. And we remembered this moment where my cousin, her name was Brittany Martin. She was an incredible woman, a fighter. She ended up being diagnosed with cancer, and she fought the good fight, and she finished her race. And you should have seen it. The people that surrounded her and her family and my cousin and their children was truly what church is all about, in the community and the people of God, wrapping their arms around and even, you know, into this day, they remember her. But I say that because, you know, anytime someone that you love, you know, passes away, it creates a moment of reflection. And my wife and I were driving up to Carlsbad, and we listened to audiobooks as we drive. And we listened to the book Unhurried Leader by Alan Fadling. And it was incredible because that was like a spiritual download that we realized both of us were hurried leaders. We had hurried lives, and we knew something had to change. And that was 2017. It was the beginning of this chapter in our lives of slowing down. And that's where the theme in my life of getting off the treadmill started to come about. And you might remember a book too by John Mark Comer, which was The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. That's pretty powerful because when it comes to hurry and eliminating something, you've got to be ruthless. You've got to be radical. And that's what we're talking about with radical focus. But slowing down gave me space to begin to operate, and really for the Holy Spirit to begin to rewire and renew my mind in many ways, and start to just make my heart tender again, to really start to do the deeper work in my life. And that was really what started the focus. And it was almost an internal focus first. I knew that I needed to deal with, my emotions, my soul, my anxiety, my fear, my worries. I started dealing with those truths. And then the radical focus kind of theme continued when I jumped from my career of 18 years at a mega church and a pastor, and I joined a small team, but an incredible team at Epic Entertainment and Ministries under Taylor Griswold. I'm going to have him on the show in the coming weeks. Taylor is a friend of friends. But Taylor, in that organization, that business operated under what was called EOS Traction, Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I'll tell you, it was so life-giving to be in a business that was so focused on having a business operating system. And with Taylor and Daniel and the team, and oh man, the team was so great. I met so many amazing people. We became so focused on our quarterly rocks, our quarterly goals. We had retreats. We had weekly alignment, L10, they call them, meetings, where we identified, discussed, and solved issues. It was an incredible opportunity for me to learn and glean from a different way of operating. And it was so powerful. So it brought focus. And that focus propelled me in growth, and it made me capable. I do credit that season with Taylor as almost like entrepreneurial mentorship, friendship, healing. But it propelled my wife and I to say, you know what? I see what Taylor and his wife have built and done over these 10 amazing years. I think 11 or 12 now. And I think I can do it too. And Taylor being Taylor, he was just pushing me and encouraging me and strengthening my wife and I with encouragement. And that's what we did. We started our own businesses, and that's where our focus continued. And we took what we learned there, and I learned there, and applied it to our own business. And I think in applying it to business, there was a lot of things that weren't clear. But I remember also my business coach at the time really giving us advice that sometimes the best thing to do is be agile and make what are called OKRs, because our business was evolving. So what we ended up adopting further with this radical focus was we made clear 90-day goals. And part of being focused, that I believe, is this 90 days. There's something really, really powerful about it for me. And if you give it a shot, it may work for you too. There's something about these 90 days that's almost like the horizon that you can see. You can't really see beyond that. And for me, we can set a goal for 90 days and we are at it. And these goals are things that we're passionate about, focused. And oftentimes we think we can do, like one time I turned to my wife and we were trying to sell more websites. It was at a season of growth and I was selling and I wasn't selling really well. So I turned to Leslie and said, how many websites can you sell? And she says, in the next 3 months, I can sell one a month, no problem. I said, go for 6, because that's what it is. It's a stretch goal. It's getting so focused and also being in the mindset of I can do these 50%, but somehow, some way, even by the grace of God and his wisdom, the other 50% is going to come. So these radical focused goals propelled us into, stretching us, becoming more creative with our solving of problems. But I can tell you that in life and in business, these intentional moments have continued throughout these years. And that's where this kind of came from. And on a on a personal note, and I'll share this as well, and I shared it on the first podcast. I've done a lot of counseling, coaching, and these are uncomfortable things, man. And I commend each and every one of you that have pursued this. And if you're not pursuing it yet, it's worth it. But the reality is, many people avoid focus and they avoid confronting the uncomfortable truths about maybe their priorities and their values. They do that for a few reasons. And I'll share a few that I've kind of come up with. Number one, it's fear. That's why we're on the Brave Wisdom podcast. You got to face your fears with courage. And I think it's that courage that fuels the radical focus. So focus will unveil the reality of where you are and where your energy is going. It'll also expose the gap between what you do and what really matters. Because if you're unfocused, you'll do all these things, and then the things that really matter, you don't even have time for. You know what I'm talking about. And the truth can be uncomfortable. It can be painful. When I've had certain coaching experiences, and sometimes these challenging, painful things come in a form of a question. And I've had those moments. I mean, man, what was the one? Oh, this one that I think I should share it. I'll share it. So I think I was doing an author course with Bob Goff. If you love Bob Goff, he's one of like, he's just amazing. He's so funny and so real, and his stories are so impactful as you read his books. And so Bob Goff is a great writer, and I'm doing an author course with him. And he talked about like how to tell a story, and one of them was like, my dream cabin, the cabin that he dreamed about having with his family and all that, it burned down. And he said, you know what I did? I got a land mover the next day and began to clear land. You know why? Because I don't like dealing with pain. And he just laughs. And so to me, I remember driving and I was going through something, and it's difficult to remember because it was just one of these like gut punches in a way. But the reality was, it forced me. And I remember like God even asked this like small voice. It was kind of strange, saying, so what's the gym to you? Why do you go to the gym? And it's probably at the time I was going to the gym. Yes, it was to get healthy, but I was avoiding dealing with the pain. It was a way that I numbed the pain. And so I ended up exchanging the gym and that non-negotiable of the gym to instead journaling and facing some uncomfortable truths. And then that journaling process is where I was facing some of the fear, the anxiety, the worry, and I was pouring out my heart every morning. And that journaling gave me focus. I think too that people avoid focus because they're resistant to transformation. I'm reading a book right now called The Immunity to Change. And the best way I can describe it is that there are things we want to do. There are things that we don't want to do. Then there's this third and fourth column, and that third column are these narratives, these lies, these things that we have been wired with, even from childhood, that are under the surface, that are driving you. And some of these things that were created by you or the things you've adopted were to keep you immune from all the anxious state that you were around. In your family, you had certain habits and behaviors that you probably adopted to stay in this and to deal with the anxiety that you had around you and the force. That's why the immunity was built. But that immunity that maybe tried to protect you in that environment isn't helping you to grow. And so you got to go deeper. But they say these narratives and lies often influence the ability to change and not change, but even deeper. And I'll be honest, I'm still digging on this one with my coaches, and my business coaches really helping me in this area too, because there's a core assumption deep within you that unless it's understood and dealt with, that core assumption and those core emotions attached to it are always going to drive the ability to transform and to change. That's some powerful stuff. The book is called Immunity to Change. It's a very popular book. It's a heavier research kind of book, but the principles and the realities are so good. It's even applied to business quite, quite well. It's incredible organizationally too. And then finally, people avoid focus because maybe it's the weight of the responsibility and taking ownership for their own lives. I think at times when I avoided, focus, it was because I had relationships that were like this, where I relied on someone else's power or someone else's, authority to kind of help me. I was maybe insecure, maybe felt inferior. I've been a little brother my whole life, so I've had big brothers and sisters, and you know how that is. Like I'm the baby of the family. Why do I take responsibility? But um, I think that's something else. That might be another show. I've read books on that these relationships are often driven by inferiority or superiority, and they're not healthy and they're not free. And so you've got to come to a realization that you have your own task, your own responsibilities. And it's in choosing to live with intention and knowing that every decision shapes your future, that you begin to take responsibility, and that weight that it often feels heavy, it begins to get lighter, and you begin to be stronger and having the courage to break the chains of distraction and things that are taking your focus. So let me share a couple practical ways, things that you can do yourself and as a family that could bring about radical focus in your life. You see, one of the things that I do, and we got a lot going on, and I know many of you that are listening have a lot going on. If you've got kids, you've got a lot going on. We've got teenagers now, all the way from 15 down to 6, 4 kids, and incredible help. We got grandparents and such, but Leslie and I work hard, and we've got a lot of responsibility. I joked the other day, it's like, she's like, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be alone." We had just gotten back from a wedding and we all traveled together, and I just told her I want to be alone. But on a personal note and a reality of focus, being alone is often the time where you can get focused. You can get quiet. Practicing solitude is a spiritual discipline that's often neglected or not non-existent in many walks of Christian faith. And I think it's something that I know God has given us this time of quiet. And it's not always just work. It's not performing a devotion or doing just something to do it and check it off. It's simply being at rest so that you can hear again. You can stop the hurry so God's voice can be clear again. So a couple of things that we do as a family and as a business is we do what are called weekly alignment meetings. Now, there was a time when we only did one, but we kind of realized we're not one thing or another was taking more of the time, whether it be the family or the business. So we actually separated them, and we do the business on Sunday night. And it's kind of nice. The whole house is kind of resetting, right? We're doing chores. The kids are doing their laundry and all those things. And we get away. My wife and I come to the office about 3:30 or 4 o'clock, and we spend at least 2 hours preparing for the week. And we have a whole outline. My wife actually has a resource that she can share with you if you're interested, that we go through a list, and it's similar to some of the business tools from EOS Traction. It takes on some of the other elements of like OKRs. But what it really does is it brings radical focus to us. We look at calendar. We look at some major issues and clients and things that we need to address. We plan our calendars for 2 weeks. Every Sunday night, we're looking 2 weeks in advance and discussing and becoming completely aligned. It's an incredible work for our business. But the beautiful thing is we added it to we tried Thursdays. We're trying to get it towards the end of the week to where we now have a family alignment meeting so that we can look forward to the weekend. And in this family alignment, we talk about things like trips we want to take with the kids. Or there's times when Leslie will take the girls and I'll take the boys camping. And we start planning those things, because those type of things, if they're not planned, they're not going to happen. And so we plan those things by quarter. and we discussed them and we put some goals. One time we had an entire thematic goal for our family and a key word, and the kids kind of got annoyed with it, but we didn't care. We used it was harmony. Isn't that a good theme or a good word for your family? What if you had a 90-day word or theme for your family, and out of that came some opportunities for you guys to do things different? So ours was harmony, and we brought about a lot of different things. It was really a powerful time. And these kids trips, I can tell you, I take trips with the boys and the girls, and we switch at times. And I've taken my son, who's 15 now, on hiking, and we're going to go climb Guadalupe Mountain. But it's something about those intentional moments, even if you have multiple children, breaking them up and doing different things with each of them. Can't tell you, Liam did baseball just this last couple months ago. And to have my third son, Liam, the third child, have his own thing on Saturday, man, we're getting breakfast in the morning. We're hanging out. He is throwing the baseball. This kid can hit better than, I'm telling you, he was like hitting home runs. I'm not kidding. And it was so fun to see him have something and have us have something we could really bond with. And that was really fun. And it took time. It took focus. Any of y'all that lead sports and do things on the weekend takes a lot of focus, a lot of planning. And that's one of the things. So those weekly alignment meetings is something I wanted to deposit and share with you. Some other things are, man, I love automation and AI and routines. So if you're interested, you can contact me. I use a system called AccuFlow. And I'll tell you, it is AI driven as well. There's some really cool elements of automation and things that are starting to happen with the technology that's just ever so expansive. But more importantly, I have this inbox, and it's a strategy many people do with notebooks and things, but this is a digital strategy. And I'll tell you why it works for me, is that this inbox is connected to everything. We got clients, some clients use this and that, and my email's connected to it, my calendar's connected to it. And so anytime I get an email and it's something I need to do, I just click a tag, and it tags it, gets it in my inbox. I can move it onto the calendar, put it on the time. It's an incredible working solution. And it's changed the way I operate. I don't miss tasks. I don't forget things. And the principle behind that, one of the ways to be radically focused is I use this analogy. Your brain is not meant to be a hard drive. If you're familiar with computers, the hard drive is where data is stored. Yes, there's data being stored in your brain, but your brain doesn't operate the best as a big, massive hard drive with all this stuff. Your brain is the processor. And if you've got too much stuff, you can't process. If you've got too many things and you're not focused, it's impossible. You're not processing. You're not even identifying what's truly most important, like your values that are aligned with your values and your purpose. So this AccuFlow has become a place where it's like my digital brain, and I can drop it in there, and then I can move things around. And every day that if I don't get to a task, it says overdue. And then it's like, oh, wow. And there's some sort of reward by checking things off. There's the most beautiful sound when you check it off too. It's like, it's just like rewarding. I don't know why, but I love it. So AccuFlow and some of those systems, there's so many systems. I follow guys on different podcasts and things about systems. And so basically, an advice to you today is if you want to get more focus, it's going to start with some really cool systems. What if you considered, hey, we don't have an operating system for our business that matter, or we don't have an operating system, an OS for our family. And if you consider that OS analogy, how many times has your iPhone operating system been updated? And I would say as your family grows, as your children grows, as your business grows, there's a lot of updating of your operation systems that needs to be done. And if it's not done, you'll be playing catch up and you won't be focused. And the final thing on this note would be, I've learned really, really well when to take breaks. I take breaks during the day. I work out, and that's a break. That's a release, like a pressure release of just, being at the gym and working out. I also take my Sabbath, and we actually call it delight days. And so out of these delight days, in fact, this is really neat because we started doing this and my wife created it. We try to shut down on Friday. Now, whether Friday, some weeks we can get Friday to be maybe we're just checking in on a few things. I have like a meeting with my project manager, but most Fridays now are delight. most of the day, if not all of it, but half of it at least. They're delight days for Leslie and I. And the reason we do that strategically is that Friday becomes a day where we decompress and shut down work, and we begin to even fuel ourselves again, so that the weekend, now we're focused on what? The family. If you think about it, your kids are at school all week. If you don't find the rest before the weekend, all you're doing is trying to catch up on rest, and then you miss out on the enjoyment of your kids. And so we're not perfect at it, but we're certainly pursuing it. And it's been a powerful thing that and I learned this from a pastor, Curtis Campbell. Even when I was traveling, he would give me this constant advice, and he would say, when you get home from a traveling trip, take a few hours to decompress before you go home, because your kids are going to be excited to see you, and you've got to have the energy and the love that they've missed. And so I think that's the same thing for our weekends. If you start getting radically focused and let rest even come before the weekend, then you are available to your children. Then church on Sunday isn't like waking up saying, well, you want to go to church or not? I've been there. And the reality now, it's like church becomes another radically focused rhythm in your life, because it's not something done out of even church. I know getting up, taking the kids, all that becomes quite the experience on Sunday mornings. But I think this Friday, starting with Friday, maybe this has helped you too. I think this Friday rest has propelled and brought about weekends that we simply enjoy. And again, on Sunday, we're resetting and preparing for the next week. There's a rhythm to our days, and we're living each day and not just trying to figure things out all the time. And here's something too to encourage some of you, because this has been encouraging to me, and this is something still I struggle with. And that is, I used to feel guilty about getting focused and saying no, especially saying no to people. That's one of the things for whatever it is, I'm a performer at times. I was in ministry, obviously servant leadership, something I really want. And there's a difference between servant leadership and then, basically abusing yourself on behalf of someone else, and like sacrificing your own family or your own health. That's something that I don't believe is biblical, for that matter. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. But I had a tendency to put my neighbor before myself. And then the reality there is you can't even love the way you're supposed to, because you're not healthy. But you've heard this said a lot, every time you say yes to things that don't align with your purpose, you're saying no to the things that do. You're saying no to things like even family or your actual calling. You're saying no, and I've done this in my life. You're saying no to your health and your well-being. Praise God, my brother and my dad are both chiropractors. So I have had wellness in my family my entire life. I've always had someone that taught wellness and treated wellness. But there was a time in my life when stress and anxiety was so bad that I could sit on my dad's adjusting table, and he could tell me, think about what you're anxious about. And my body would be as weak as can be. And through some supplementing and some chiropractic care, I was able to balance again and to kind of get wellness care. But I had to learn how to cope with that, overcome it, because it wasn't even a body, it was a soul issue. It was a soul issue that was affecting my mind and body, and emotionally I was hurting. So physically I was paying the consequence. But I had to start saying no. And so I see this now, and I didn't see it younger. So some of the younger kids in jobs and things, saying no isn't rejection. Yeah, it might feel that way, and it's actually clarity. Because when you say no, you're saying, I'm clear, I'm focused on what I'm supposed to do. And as much as I'd like to do that, it's not for me. What I'll often do is, listen, I can't do that for you, but I know someone that might be able to, and I'm a connector by heart, so I'll connect you with them. Or I'll be honest, and I'll just share, this is a hard thing for me to do, and it's not something I do often, but or as easily as I'd like, I should. But yeah, ultimately, you can be as gracious and conversational as you want. I probably talk too much at times, but the truth is, no isn't a rejection; it's clarity. It's choosing to honor the life God has called you to live and not live a life that someone else is dictating. You see, the truth is this: the people who get offended by your no are often the ones who never honored your boundaries in the first place. And they've never honored them from the beginning of your relationship. And so, what makes you think they're going to honor them later? And ultimately, the reality that is true, they're not seeking connection or relationship. They're trying to take control of your time and your energy. And many of these people take control of your time and your energy, and then they get to rest and do the things that they want to do. So there's this thing that I've learned. It's a book called The Courage to Be This Like. There's this separation of task, and when your tasks are encroached upon, and even this relationship, there's no freedom, there's no focus, and it's definitely not a life that's living out of values and identity. Because saying no is essential and part of having brave wisdom. So I'll conclude with this. If I could give my younger self some honest advice about being focused, what would that be? Well, my younger self was a very anxious child. I had anxiety as a kid. I was always worried. I had asthma, and that wasn't a good combination. So anxiety, caused my asthma attacks. I was afraid of substitute teachers. That would cause asthma attacks. But there was a story I think that's funny, is that my teacher in first grade, she read a book. It was a public school. It was like, my substitute teacher is a witch. I really remember this in first grade. She read the book, My Substitute Teacher is a Witch. Okay. And it was about this substitute teacher that was a witch. Well, the next day we have a substitute teacher, and she's wearing all black. So what do you think first grade Brett was thinking? That woman is a witch. So that fear and that anxiety spurred an asthma attack. I was in the nurse's office, and I got to go home. Yeah, because I wasn't going to be in a class with a witch, not at all. But that's just a funny story. But I would go to the nurse's office all the time, and I could, through anxiety and emotion, I could get what I want, which was, oftentimes escape. And I learned to escape well. So I think one of the things that I would tell myself, and I see that, and I would tell anyone that's like me, it starts with courage, to have more courage, to face it. And I do know this, I'm resilient. I don't give up. Leslie knows. And throughout my career even, I do not give up. So resilience hasn't been an issue, but focus has. My advice to myself would be, focus on what really matters. And I can tell you, as you may have heard in the first episode, I have done that. I know when I look at my wife, she's what matters most to me in terms of relationship, covenantal relationship. When I look at my children, I've heard it said, Jordan Peterson was saying how our children are like on fire, like the burning bush that drew the attention of Moses was this passionate fire that had a voice. Our children are these little passion fires in our lives. That's why you can look at all the kids in a crowd, but your child is like the one on fire with passion and love. My children matter most to me. So with this anxiety, it had a lot to do with worrying about the future and always worrying about tomorrow. So finally, the last advice I'd give my younger self was, focus isn't about controlling the future. I would say focus is about fully embracing the present and trusting that clarity will come as you move forward.